Hey, welcome to episode 49 of Mosaic Minds Podcast. Obviously, you can count, but next episode will be episode 50. And we have been around for almost a year now. So we have definitely beaten most podcasts. I think the average life of, because there's podcasts that start all the time, and I think the average life of a podcast is like 3 months, something like that. But yeah, so we beat the odds. We have made it almost a year. It'll be a year February 13th. And I wanted to intro this myself so that no one was confused. So basically me and Jason are going to talk about the evolution of Mosaic Minds over the past 11 months. We're going to talk about some of our favorite episodes, some of our favorite guests. And we want to start it with the original intro with our original 3 hosts and all that. So whenever I played the intro, I didn't want everyone to get confused. So let's go ahead and dive right in.
Welcome to Mosaic Minds, the podcast where every episode is a colorful blend of perspectives, ideas, and conversations. Each week, our diverse team of hosts brings their unique backgrounds, experiences, and interests to the table. Mosaic Minds is your invitation to join the conversation to see the world through a kaleidoscope of viewpoints. So grab a seat, tune in, and let the mosaic unfold before you.
So I just wanted to play the intro from the original one. You know, something I just noticed is Crystal is wearing the hoodie that I have on right now.
Interesting. Didn't realize that.
Yeah, right?
Very cool.
Right? Very cool. So yeah, so when we first started, we had 3. There was 3 of us, and that was fun. And it started out with just like you were saying, like round table discussions and that kind of thing. And then we finally started to get guests, and that's when it got a little more interesting. I wish that Crystal could have been on a little longer just so she could have seen some of the... She never really got to see much of the success. You know, like she hopped off before we really started getting a lot of subscribers. But I'm going to make sure I tag her in this too so she can, you know, take a trip down memory lane. But yeah, that was fun. But yeah, our first guest was Todd Hedges, and he was the middle-aged and creeped out.
Yeah, what was cool about Todd being a guest is he'd already done this a little bit on his own, had his own niche, and allowed us to be part of it. And he was a natural guest, gave some good advice to the crowd, and couldn't have went any better, I think, for our first one with a live guest.
So I just wanted to talk about some of the more favorites as I'm scrolling down through here. One of the ones that was the early ones that I really liked, and I think that you liked it too, is the Simpsons predictions that we did. And that was we didn't have a guest then. That was again just the 3 of us, and then just pulling up some clips from different things.
On The Simpsons, Homer discovered the God particle, which is the formula for where mass comes from in the universe.
And that's new? I don't know anything about that.
So scientists confirmed it in 2012. And there's an episode where he literally has the equation written on a chalkboard in 1998.
The exact equation?
Yes.
That's wild.
Man, that's...
I think
something evil about this.
Yeah, that one.
That was. What did you think of that one?
the lineage of that, her research was phenomenal for that episode, given the specific cases. But the one that always stuck with me is the Chicago Cubs. Being a lifetime Cubbies fan, they had the mezzanine outside of Wrigley Field with the exact year and the fact that they had won the World Series. And historically, it turned out to be right. You know, when Chris Bryant fired over to Rizzo and the Cubs won the World Series, the Simpsons had predicted that many years before the actual last out of the World Series.
So then you remember our first, what I considered to be big time guest, like celebrity kind of thing, was when we had Bob Netolicky on, right? And that was really cool. So Bob Netolicky, you go ahead and talk a little bit about Bob and what he's known for.
Bob played for the ABA, the Indiana Pacers, ABA franchise from, I believe, 67 to 76. Local rock star. He had Netto's, that was a nightclub kind of bar. A lot of celebrities went in there. He talked about owning an ocelot, which is a kind of an African cat, I believe, and then hanging out with Elvis Presley when he was in town. Ladies were banging on his car, asking where Elvis was, and he said, hold on, I'll see him after the concert here in about 3 or 4 hours. So just a rock star on and off the court, very relatable, and just had some phenomenal stories about yesteryear's stars there in the ABA.
In 1969, we made the playoffs, okay? And we were playing Kentucky in 1969. This is the second year in the league. We were down, it was tied, and the seventh game was in Indianapolis, and we were a 10-point underdog. And they had a really good team back then. And little did any of us know, but the ownership group of the Pacers met that morning with bankruptcy attorneys. And had we lost that game, they were folding the team the next day and declaring bankruptcy.
Man.
Wow.
So what was cool about Bob was, even though he was a celebrity, he was really down to earth, and he was because of him, I feel like that he was the start of me thinking that nobody was off limits. Like that we could get anybody on there after him, because it was just like, wow, like he super down to earth. I believe that we were even kind of texting him back and forth, right? And it's like, well, we got like a famous basketball player's number in our phone kind of thing. It was really cool.
Definitely humble, definitely professional, definitely had some rock star stories. Couldn't have had a better first, kind of professional camera and lights type person in the NBA or celebrity arena.
And he's the one that introduced us. There's been a lot of episodes that we've talked about the Dropping Dimes Foundation. He's the one that first introduced at least me to that. I don't know if you'd heard of it before. I'd never heard of it, because I'm pretty sure that when he was talking about it, I called it the Marching Dimes Foundation. And he didn't correct me or anything. So this episode, this was the most we'd ever gotten, right? And I mean, this is great. This is good. But we had 1.8 thousand views, and I think at the time we had like 600 700 subscribers, something like that. So now we are at 6.89 thousand subscribers. And if we look at our most recent video, well, I'm going to cheat a little bit. Our most recent video just came out, so instead I'm going to look at the second most recent video, which just happened to be our highest amount of views that we've had yet, and that was Brigitte Ortiz, and she's starring in a movie called Bad Apples, and she was promoting the movie. 6.2 thousand views. That's the most that we've ever gotten. So part of it, we want to say good job, Brigitte, right? Because
Absolutely.
like she definitely gets some credit for that, but we also got to give ourselves a pat on the back, because we're going on a year, and we could have put Obama or someone like that on there, and I doubt we would have gotten 6,000 views when we first started, right? Don't you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, I think it was cool too, because that story and that guest has a personal connection to Indianapolis, with Bad Apples being filmed in Indianapolis throughout the city, kind of repping the 317. So I think that's a cool aspect of it as well. But she's been very successful entrepreneurially, on the runway and on the screen. So she's very successful, very humble, and is doing great things out in the entertainment community.
The next big one that we had was Pat Rose, and again, not being a sports guy, I didn't know who Pat Rose. I had to look him up and research him. But man, what a guy! We recently had his son on here, Camden, who's kind of following in his footsteps, doing the wrestling thing and also doing music. But dude, Pat was just such an amazing guy. I mean, like everything about him, he was real. He was, kind of tenderhearted kind of guy. Yeah, and he showed up on the show with his wrestling mask on. That's what I'm trying to find here.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, making his way to the ring, standing at an opposing height and weighing in at an awe-inspiring 235 pounds. Here he comes, a force to be reckoned with, a colossus of the canvas, the one, the only, Pat Rose.
And Jason, you knew Pat before that, right? Like that's how you got Pat. Go ahead and tell that story.
I did Pat through Set the Hook, an ESPN syndicated program. Talks typically with a wrestler, a small bait company, and then he talks fishing to an Elite Series or BSS or FLW Elite Series tournament angler, and super nice guy. What stuck to me about Pat is he intros the show with the national anthem and outros the show with a specific Bible verse. Man of high character, man that'll lay his feelings, right on his sleeves, and just a great-hearted, kind, gentle giant is what I would call Pat.
Definitely.
Let me mention something that we do and been doing it since day one. First, we open up with the national anthem. At the end, we close with this right here. Matthew 4:19, and he said unto them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. Here's the catch to it. The greatest catch that you and I can make is when someone gets hooked on the love of Jesus Christ.
Oh, wow.
Boom. Now,
Wow.
when they start saying, Pat Rose, you can't say that,
We move on.
You know what I mean?
We move
Yeah.
on. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
It is.
He don't care, like he would say whatever. And then shortly after Pat Rose, we had our next, I guess what you'd consider a superstar, right? We had Rick Barry, who was known for the underhand free throw.
You were talking about earlier about confidence and how important that is. There's a lot of words out there right now that people love to throw out and are misused. But you're obviously a very confident guy. So how would you distinguish between confidence and, I know that you probably heard the word back in the day, arrogance used. Where would you draw the line between the two of those?
Compliment to you. You're the first person in all these years they've done that actually understands that's the. Yeah, I've been called arrogant. Okay, I am not an arrogant person. An arrogant person to me is someone who really lacks confidence in themselves, and it's a camouflage mechanism to hide the fact that they're scared shitless. Okay, and anybody is an arrogant person. They're bullshit. Okay, because they don't have the confidence that they need to have. I'm an extremely confident individual, and that scares the hell out of people.
Right now, tell me you were, and you pretty much are the person that does most of our booking, right? I mean, like we both kind of hop on there and talk to them, but you pretty much do most of the booking. But especially there at the very beginning. So tell me, how did you get Rick Barry, and how did that come about?
It's a funny story. I have a fishing lure company called Boing Lures, and Rick Barry had posted a photo. I believe it was a salmon that was making that run that had the beautiful red on it. And I just simply made the comment, hey, do you fish? And next thing you know, he responds back to me, and I'm kind of starstruck because I'm like, man, this is a top 50 NBA Hall of Famer of all time, and likes to fish. And then one thing led to another, and I said, we have a podcast. Would you like to be on? He said, yes. And talk about a guy that's been in the limelight for a lot of years and one of the highest free throw percentages in the history of the NBA, famous for the underhand free throw stroke. And he kind of broke it down to us. And that episode meant a lot to me because he was humble enough to let our son be on, my son Harrison be on. Right. He got to ask him a couple key questions. So I thought that was kind of a nice kind of bow to having a famous Hall of Fame level basketball player on.
Let's I forgot about that Harrison was on that time. Yeah,
it was cool.
That was cool because he was one of Harrison's, someone he really looked up to, right?
So obviously, like, you're up there free throw shooters with like the greats of Steph Curry, Larry Bird, Steve Nash, and obviously you had a very unique style with the underhand shot. Why do you think no one else has picked up on that since you were so lethal, like such a lethal shooter in that, like, with that form?
I wish I had the answer to it. I don't know. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's proven by physicists to be the most efficient way and the best way to shoot free throws, least amount of moving parts. And yet nobody wants to do it because they're worried about the way that they look. Who the hell cares how you look? The whole try to shoot the highest percentage you can. I mean, if I could have stood there with my back to the basket with a blindfold on and thrown them over my head and made a higher percentage, I would have done it that way. I was going to do it the way that made the highest percentage possible. I was able to do that. I just wish I was smart enough to have changed my technique earlier in my career, which I did late in my career. And I still think I am the best because Steph, I think, is the best around 92%. But in my last 6 years, I shot over 92%. My last 2 years, I shot over 94% from the free throw line. And I'll brag about it because it's the only part of the game of basketball that you can be selfish and help your team. And my youngest son, Canyon, playing now, he's been as high as 90%, and he is shooting them underhanded.
Okay, and then one of them we had was one that I think you were at a fishing tournament, and so you weren't a part of that one, but I know that you watched it. And this guy was a real character, and that was the OG of
pickup artists, Ross Jeffries, and he was hard to interview, like, because he was he knew how to take control of the room, like he could definitely hijack the conversation and put you back down where he thought you deserved to go. So let me find. I can't play a whole lot of his, but let me see if I can find a clip.
Good. Please allow me to answer your question. Respectfully, please. I want to be able to answer. Voltaire said, the famous French philosopher and playwright and comedian and political commentator.
Yeah, so he was a difficult one to interview because, as interviewers, you can't really let the guest take over the conversation. But okay, so shortly after Ross Jeffries was on, we had the one that I kind of thought I was the most excited about probably up to that point because I knew who he was and because he was, all TikTok famous and stuff. But that was when we had Denden on.
Indianapolis, where else Hoosiers eat tenderloins the size of your back. Shit! From Indianapolis, where if you ride down 16th Street, you know that motherfucker used to scare you. Shit! I'm from Indianapolis, man, and we don't love these hoes. Shit! I'm from Indianapolis, man, and these ain't the real hot fries. These motherfuckers are right here. Shit. I'm from Indianapolis, and if an African's at the register, you don't want them to tell Mike. Shit. Indianapolis, and if you ain't never had Christmas fried chicken out west, you tripping. Shit. Like I tried to go get some hot dogs at Kroger, and it was people just talking about me like I didn't hear it. That's that guy from Instagram. Like, I'm that guy from Instagram.
Yeah.
Do you mind if we take a picture and we taking a picture and then somebody else come past and be like, shit. And I turn around and never imagine sitting on front rows of anything, let alone, I guess I'm from Indianapolis hashtag. When everybody Googled Indianapolis, I was the first person that came up. I went ahead and started looking at all the videos. I mean, I was walking up to people like, can I have an autograph? And they was like, shit. I'm like, huh? Like the dude that's playing Draymond Green in the Clippers series on FX. He was buying me all kind of drinks and food and stuff. He was just hanging. He was like, man, I watched your videos all night long. And Terrell Owens and shout out to David Bell and Big DeJuan Jones from Cleveland Browns. They from Indianapolis. I was just hanging with these people, man. I would never imagine that a year.
What was your takeaway of Denden's episode?
I think he deserves what he gets, man. He loves the city that he lives in. All he wants to see is picking up the city we live in, the 317 to 463. And the takeaway that I had for that was interesting, and I've told a lot of people since then, is the guy had a basketball ticket to the NBA All-Star game. It was a $10,000, $15,000 plus seat given to him. But then the honor that I think he should be most proud of is the fact that he can go to Long's Donuts and walk in the back door and actually get the donuts handed to him. He doesn't have to wait in a line.
Yes.
First off, my mom, one day me and my mother was going to get something to eat, and she told me to videotape it because I was a photographer, videographer. So I videotaped it, and I just did a little simple voiceover, and the next day it was like 100,000 views, and I was like, whoa. So then I had got the attention of some TV people. So they had gave me a show called Breakfast, Lunch, and Denden, which I was just doing Channel 40.
Yeah.
And I was doing commercials for them first, just like different businesses. And then the beginning of the year, that's when I was going to start the show. It was kind of going to be like Triple D. Long story short, I lost my mom. End up finding out I had cancer 2 or 3 months later. Said I was going to take a break. One day, did the Indianapolis video, and it just changed my entire life.
Wow. Some love to Denden, a little shout out because he has been battling cancer, and I think he just finished a round of chemo a few months back, if I remember right. So hope you're doing good, Denden, if you're watching this.
Yeah, the love from the city, man's there for you. Whenever you post something, no matter if you're having a rough day or a tough day or a great day, the love for you is evident by the comments that you see. We're all thinking about you. We're all praying for you. We're all wishing. And it looks like you got a new project. I believe it's called 46205, if I'm not mistaken. the little mini videos around Indianapolis. So, 2025 is your year, man. You're going to kick it and go on to do what you were doing in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah.
You can handle this last one, man. So keep people laughing is what I'm going to send you off with, man. But we just gotta hear it live, man. We gotta hear your Cadillac pronunciation of the word. Starts with an S and ends with a T. So just give us a proper 317 Indianapolis Denden send off.
What it do, Naptown? It's your boy Big Denden, chilling like a villain on this beautiful day. Shit!
Bam!
Right on, man. Hey, thanks so much, dude. I really appreciate it.
All right, appreciate y'all.
Good work, man. Have a good rest of your day, man. You kicked it.
You too, man. Appreciate you.
All right, man. That was cool.
But one thing cool about Denden is he's very about supporting the city, and all of his videos have to do with supporting, the different restaurants and establishments around Indianapolis, especially like urban Indianapolis, like downtown, like inner city kind of thing. And he's from what I understand, Jason, I think you know a little bit more about this than I do, but from what I understand, he people pay him to come and do promotions for their restaurants and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I think when you lift up the city and you go to the certain places and have the following you do, it's nice to see that individual entrepreneur or restaurant or dessert shop, benefit from that. But it's also nice to see someone that can get that message out to the masses, because a lot of the places I've personally looked at that looks like new cuisine that, I haven't personally tried, and he's doing a phenomenal job with the promos.
Yeah, great guy. And then I can't, just because she's so amazing, she may not, a lot of people may not know who she is, but I think she prefers it that way because she's so humble. But she, I couldn't go on without mentioning Julie, Dr. Bosler. She was amazing. And she'll be a lifelong friend. She's someone that I'll text occasionally. I believe she was one on my list of Merry Christmas texts that I sent out, just a great person. Show a real quick clip of her. And what I liked about that episode was about mental health. And, so I really, that was the first big episode on mental health that we'd done.
And I'm sitting in the car and I say to my daughter, my youngest is in the back seat, my oldest is in the front seat. And I think I shared this with you, and every time I say this, you see I tear up. Every time I say this, it tugs at me, because this was the life-altering moment for me. I said to my daughters, they're in the car, and I had picked them up from practice coming from the therapist, and they had sat in the doctor's office with me while they're prescribing this medication. And I said, just so y'all know, we're not really talking about this. I'm on medication. We're not gonna talk about this with your friends. You don't need to mention it. They were like, and my senior in high school now was littler. And I remember her saying, these are her exact words, Nick. Don't worry, Mommy. Your secret's safe with us. Oh, and at that moment, I had this, I still feel it when I tell the story. I had this shame fall over me, like, oh my gosh, I have just redirected my shame to my children. I have just taught them in this moment, shh, don't tell anybody.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, she's wonderful, wonderful lady. If you're watching, Julie, we love you.
I think the solid illustration that she gave that stuck with me was the removing weight from the backpack. So you always constantly have to be removing weight from your backpack. And when the backpack's too full of weight, then that's when you need to not be too prideful and reach out for help. So I've actually used that several times in my life, actually, since she's been a guest. So I think that was very...
right, like you're always going to have little rocks.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And yeah.
Yep.
I'd say and it's interesting that it was about halfway through episode 31. So not quite, a little further than halfway through, but we had M. Curtis McCoy on, who's become one of our good friends. But I feel like his episode was a turning point for the show. After his episode, he helped us with learning a little bit about search engine optimization, how to drive and drive views to your video and things like that. But he has been, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's been a big, I'd say a big turning point in our show.
I 100% agree. Just the humility that he has, the contacts that he has, the selflessness that he has, willing to share his techniques, his procedures, just on a big level. Newswire magazine has been huge, and just helping everybody progress and kind of, expand their next horizon over the next 12, 18 months.
Yeah, if you haven't heard of M. Curtis McCoy, just Google him. He'll be the only thing that shows up for like 100 pages.
I was a guest on a guy's show a couple of years ago here. I mean, I'm doing 6+ interviews a day right now, but a couple of years ago I was a guest pretty early on, and I was talking about the abuse and overcoming brain cancer, diabetes, and growing up with my dad handing me a pistol, telling me to do the world a favor, those kind of things. And I'm thinking, man, this is some groundbreaking, trauma stuff that this, it's really going to inspire the audience that they can do whatever they want in their life. And so this kid started sharing how he had grown up, been, his mom had stabbed him in the kitchen stabbed him in the kidney with a steak knife and sawed off one of his fingers with a steak knife before he was taken away by Child Protective Services, and ended up in foster home after foster home. Talked about being molested and raped by multiple different men that were supposed to be taking care of him and stuff. And this is a guy that has achieved a lot in his life, super successful. But that was kind of a moment there when I was going, you know what, this guy, I looked at him because he's a leader, because he's accomplished all this crazy stuff. But then as he opened up and started sharing, I went through a little bit of that kind of stuff as a kid too. And hearing his story, thinking, I need to quit focusing on the negative stuff that happened to me and realize that's just an excuse. If you're not, if you're using your past as some kind of excuse, that's your fault. You can't control what happened to you, but you control what happens from now on.
Yeah, he's the owner of Newswire magazine. Great guy. You should definitely check him out if you don't already know who he is. And then the next one that we want to mention is Rob Bergeron, also a good friend of us and also a good friend of ours and the show's. He had a really interesting talk about how he uses AI, which is something I'm super fascinated in, like ChatGPT and things like that, to get off-market housing lists and get those out to different customers. And also he just does a lot of it free because he enjoys it. He always has something in the works. He's kind of like all over the place like I am, like shiny object syndrome and all that. So yeah, great guy. I can really relate to him quite a bit. I expect that we'll do some more things with him in the future.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm so weird. I love getting weird with stuff. So like I put together like a euchre club and just like, yeah, right. Of course you do, because you're from the Midwest, right? Yeah. And it's all Midwest people, right? Michigan, Indiana, all of us, and it was great. And I just started putting it together. I put it out on Reddit, like, hey, we're going to be here. And it got huge. But then it started being like a lot of work. And then I was like, I don't even want to go. And then I just stopped going. And we tossed the baton over. I think it's kind of died off, but it was like really cool reaching out and a lot of those people were like looking for an excuse to leave the house. And you could tell it was like the highlight of their week. I don't know. I like doing that kind of stuff, but I ended up meeting like a lot of people to talk real estate with, or like, I don't know. I love hearing about what other people, like other industries, are like struggling with, and like thinking how do you fit things in to make it like work for everybody.
What sticks to me about Rob is he said something very profound. The guy's so busy that he doesn't plan his day, and by midday his calendar's so full he can't handle it. So I think that speaks to his innovation, speaks to his willingness to help in real estate and off-market, on-market stuff. But more importantly, just an all-around genuine person. Very animated speaker. If you watch that episode, you got to watch the hand movements because he really likes, and he's spirited. He's high energy. Definitely has some good things, real estate and away from the real estate market as an individual.
Absolutely. Yeah, we mentioned earlier when we were talking about one of our first like superstar guests, Bob Netolicky, we mentioned the Dropping Dimes Foundation. And shortly after Rob's episode, Jason was able to get Darnell Hillman.
He was the first ABA slam dunk champion.
Yeah, he was the first ABA slam dunk champion, right? And we had him because he's really involved in the Dropping Dimes Foundation, and we had the president of the Dropping Dimes Foundation, Scott Tarter, on. and they spoke about that and kind of, you know, the disservice that was done to the ABA players after the ABA kind of fizzled out, even though technically it's still around, I guess. But after the NBA took over, you know, they didn't get their pensions, they didn't get their benefits and all that. And so a lot of the former ABA players who in today's world would be, you know, even if they were on the bench, they'd be millionaires. You know, some of them are homeless.
His name was Charles Jordan. He played here in town. Believe he and I played together on the 76-77 team. And Charles left the NBA and went over to Italy and played over there. He was over there for about 27, 28 years. Well, he fell upon some hard physical times, and his sister was able to get him back here to America. And once she got him back here, I was working for the Pacers at that time, and she reached out to me to see if we could assist with getting Charles some shoes, maybe a warm-up suit, something with some Pacers logo on it. And Dropping Dimes was just getting off the start then, so I told her about reaching out to Dropping Dimes, and they reached out to Dropping Dimes, and Scott and the gang were able to help him. They took him over to, what was that?
The Big and Tall store.
Yeah, Big and Tall store. Got him outfitted with suits and shoes and all the necessities that he needed. And it really brought up his spirit. It made him feel comfortable again, feel like a human being again. And that's where that would be my first story. And seeing how we did that and just the launch on that, I knew we were into something that was going to go pretty good.
Dropping Dimes with Scott Tarter and Darnell Hillman as our guest was very, very heart-wrenching. I mean, you've got guys that have since made millions that are very comfortable, but you've got just as many guys in that mid-70s range, years old, that are struggling financially. You know, they might need a knee replacement. They may need dental care. They just may need encouragement or a roof over their head. I think advocating for what they feel is right with the pensions is the biggest thing for Dropping Dimes. They recently had I'm going to call it a documentary discussing that. We'll put a link up for that here on our video, but just advocating for it, doing what's right, and working for those players that need the help. I think it's a strong community, strong avenue, and not leaving any of your brothers behind on the basketball court or off after their careers have long been over.
Yeah, great message. And, you know, like a lot of people haven't heard of the Dropping Dimes Foundation. So, you know, it's something that we try to get out there when we can to help them out. We had somebody that Jason kind of knew of from the fishing world, Stevie Lee. Her name's Stephanie McKenna, but she goes by Stevie Lee. And she is especially on Instagram, but she's an influencer. And what she does is she posts pictures. She's a big time angler, and she posts pictures of the fish that she catches. One of the cool things that I took out of her interview was when we asked her what kind of advice would she give to somebody that was wanting to possibly, you know, become an influencer or wanting to kind of follow in that path, especially when it came to fishing.
If you want to be taken seriously, don't look like a hoe on your Insta.
Yeah.
Don't have your butt cheeks hanging out. I mean, have like maybe a few bikini pictures, whatever, but like really show that you care. Like, network and be professional, because no one is going to take you seriously. They're just going to think that you're just a hot piece of ass who wants to get likes holding a fish. But if you really put the time in, you save your money up, you buy a boat, and you enter in these tournaments, and you post, you know, how you did, and just kind of really just utilize the platform to help you network. Because honestly, in a professional way, it's almost like I always say, because my mom follows me on Instagram, like, I don't ever post anything I wouldn't want my mom to see or my boss to see. Like, be professional. If you want to be, and if this individual wants to be taken seriously, like, act seriously. And I'm not saying that, like, fishing, you have to be all serious and then it's not going to be fun. Like, it's going to be fun if that's what you want to do. But like, you're not going to be taken seriously if you have your butt cheeks hanging out and you look like, you know, an OnlyFans superstar holding a fish, you know? So that's really the best thing that I can say because
all class individual up in the Minnesota area. If there's any national sponsors listening to the Mosaic Minds podcast, she would be an excellent influencer. Does some great things, tournament angling, off the water does some things, has a unique sense of professionalism, very well diversified in the fishing area, fishes for some smallmouth, fishes for some muskie, very patient with some of the techniques that she discussed on as a guest, as opposed to the power fishing, which I think is interesting. It takes a lot of patience and dedication to that craft. And I think on the water and off the water, she's poised to have a successful 2025 year.
I don't know. I would guess that probably not too many people know of Reggie Edwards, but I feel like we have to mention Reggie Edwards because he was a really fun and fascinating guest. He is what is, I would say, is described by the Mosaic. Because he does, he does the music. He takes pictures of different musical artists, anywhere from like Christian music artists to Smashing Pumpkins to to anybody, like hip hop, rock, all kinds of different. And he's right there by the stage. He said he can basically see them sweating. And then he's also, and I'm going to let Jason talk a little more on this because he's been to where he does this, but he also plays a part in the WCWO, right? He also plays a part in the WCWO wrestling arena where he actually writes the scripts or like kind of like the plot line. You're back. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how I got into WCWO. I was only supposed to be a ringside photographer for one show in August of 2020. And that was it. And now here I am. I'm still not sure how they pulled that off. I swear they worked the whole time. But yeah, it started in college, man. I didn't know what I wanted to do for a career. I had no idea. I thought I wanted to be a social worker. And then my girlfriend at the time pointed out that I don't do mornings very well. And that's a very important part of that. So she brought up going to work for the school newspaper at Indiana State. And one of my first assignments was photographing a concert Willie Nelson's son Lucas was playing in town in Terre Haute. And took a camera and photographed the show and ended up hanging out with him on the tour bus afterwards and interviewed him. And yeah, that was an experience.
WCW Outlaw Wrestling, great production, a lot of fun, family oriented. They do some interesting stuff. And I hope to be working about the time this airs with WCWO, doing some kind of behind the scenes promos, asking the questions of the wrestlers, and I think anytime you can get out there, it's family fun, it's oriented. You're probably looking at a family of four costing under $50 and maybe throw a soda and some popcorn in there. And you're probably sitting within, 6 to 30 feet of the ring. It's definitely a small, right on top of the ring environment to take children friendly to those events and things.
I forgot, and that's something that I always forget about too, because that's pretty affordable. Went to the movies the other night, cost me $80.
Of course.
Another transformative guest, I would say, I think Jason would agree, was when we had Brigham Blackham on. Brigham is a master of storytelling, and he talks about the power of storytelling as it relates to business, as it relates to your personal life, just how it's important to have animation and tonality and that kind of thing when you're talking to people.
This brings up one of my favorite quotes in Chinese, Bu Jin Ze Tui. If you're not progressing, you're digressing. Just like in theater, your last show is the one that people remember. In storytelling, the last story that you told, that's the one that people remember. One of the reasons I like Toastmasters, and I like a lot of different types of personal development. Toastmasters is just one, so this is not something that is exclusive. There are lots of ways you can do it, but I personally choose Toastmasters because they have a very simple program and it's tailored to what you want to do. They have some specific skills, and then you take those skills and apply it to your story. It's not, you have to talk about this specific element only. No, you come up with your stories, your topics, and they say, here's a few different ways you can fill it out and use this to polish your story. So here's one that I'm going to be delivering tomorrow. I'll give you a little 3-minute version of it. And I'm really excited about it. So this was one of those moments a few years ago that I had my eyes opened. And it was honestly only probably 30 seconds of my life, but it has influenced the way that I look at life. You guys bought in? You excited to hear this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get it.
Last year, during the slow season of my short-term rentals, I was just really frustrated. I was like, where am I going to go to make the last couple $1,000 I need to make sure I hit all of my rents, make sure I have all my bills paid? What do I need to do? And I went and I talked to my mom, and she's like, well, you could come and do some odd jobs for us. I was like, all right, I'm going to do some odd jobs. She's like, well, come paint the bathroom. I was like, no problem. I can paint the bathroom. I do these random odd jobs. And painting the bathroom, I was getting all these strokes in there, making it look beautiful. And then I'd go do another one. I'd mow their lawn and just all these random things. While I was doing all these things, there was one day that I was at my parents' house. I walk out to the shed, which had all of our tools in it, the paint supplies, and I noticed the door was just slightly cracked open. I was like, huh, that's weird. I open the door, I walk in, and I hear this like this weird buzzing sound. I was like, what the heck? Where is that? And I look up, and I'm like, is this a June bug? What is that? There's this thing that's bouncing really quickly off the ceiling. And after I looked at it for a second, I noticed it was a little hummingbird. This little hummingbird just bouncing its head off the ceiling. It could not figure out how to get out of the shed. And I was like, well, I'm going to try and catch this thing and get him out of here. So I opened the door really wide, and I was like, come get out. And I was like gesturing, trying to make him go out there. And he could not, for the life of him, figure out how to get out of the shed. I was taken aback how easy it was for him to get in, but how hard it was for him to get out. It's almost like one of those little wasp traps. They get in there, and then even though the way they came in is right there, they can't figure out how to get out. So I tried to swat at him with a broom to get him out, and he was too frantic to go out. So I got on these little gloves. I had these garden gloves, the rubber ones. So just in case, he didn't poke me and make me bleed or something. But I was tall enough, I was able to kind of press him softly against the ceiling and cup him into my hands. And when I looked at him, his head, he'd been bouncing off long enough. I don't know if he'd been in there a few hours or he'd been in there a whole day, but his head, like the feathers looked kind of flattened. And in the 80s how they had those flat top hairdos? Yeah, he had like a flat top as a hummingbird. And I was looking at it, and he was so exhausted. He was so exhausted. And I went outside and I opened my hand, and he didn't immediately fly away. It was almost like he turned to me and he said, "Thank you so much. I'm so glad I was in your hands." He trusted.
I know that Jason even had mentioned that he used that at work, right?
Absolutely. Just keeping your diaphragm up. And, I do better when I sit up straight. I do better when my hands are moving. He does all of those things. So when I work at a school and I speak with someone, you have to be high energy, but the story is really not about you. It's about what is their story and how does it connect with you as an admissions advisor to help them move forward with the passion that they have. So he was inspirational, has some very successful guests. I believe he does something called Level Up, if I'm not mistaken, and does a great job with the animation and the energy of telling a story across the microphone.
Yeah, and we can't go anywhere. We can't move forward without talking about Michael Ford, aka DJ Twist Money, because he is actually the one that he provided us with this bumper music that you heard at the beginning of this episode. So he is he mixes beats and all that. But not only that, the way that I'm going to let Jason tell it, but the way that Jason knows him is through the fishing world.
Yeah, if you have anything that you need prototyped 3D fishing wise, he would be your guy. The guy makes mats for your welcome mats when you come over. He makes these, I'm going to call them like a keychain or a fob that allows you to go right to your social media presence through a scan of your phone. I mean, it's some great stuff.
That's what it looks like.
Does great in the DJ world. He received an award down in Georgia, I believe. And not only does well in the 317 area here, but gets himself out in the South. Does some work with a group, I believe, that's from Texas. So tip of my cap to you, Mike. You're really inspirational. I really like the fact that you kicked off 2025 about 3 days into 2024, and you're carrying that momentum. I'm seeing your post at 1:30 in the morning, so I know you're still up like a night owl, kind of hustling and making stuff happen into 2025.
Yeah, he's a beast. The reason I like him is because he reminds me, I want to say of us, but definitely of myself. He just, once he gets into it, like he goes, I think that was one of the questions that we asked him is like, how do you separate, because he's got 3 kids?
Yep.
He's got 3 kids that he's a very involved parent. kind of like, how do you separate your personal life from all of the other things that you got going on? Yeah, just a great guy. Then I always like the ones that are relatable.
Good sense of humor, because I got to throw some dad humor into this. You can't call him Mike Chevy. You got to call him Mike Ford, because that's his last name, right?
Yep. Yeah, he liked that, I think. And we mentioned early on about Brigitte Ortiz. She is we have to mention her, even though her episode was just a couple episodes ago, because she is our highest viewed episode. And again, two people I want to thank for that. Her, first of all, and her fans, but also M. Curtis McCoy that we talked about earlier, because without M. Curtis, I wouldn't have learned the search engine optimization that helped drive more of the viewers to our episodes.
Just a quick informal promo there on the 317 Indianapolis area. Bad Apples was filmed in Indianapolis, in and around Indianapolis. So Brigitte has done a great job in that movie, does a great job on the runway there as an international model, as well as an entrepreneur as well. So if you haven't heard her or come across her, do your research there, and she's definitely established but up and coming. Great look at the city throughout the movie, from what I'm understanding, and I think they're in the pre-production or post-production, I think you would call it, and should be on the screens to where you can view it in X amount of time as time goes on. But yeah, 6,200 views in a week, and then not only that, the shorts gained another 2,500, so 8,500 to 9,000 views in a week. That's heavy lifting, thanks to Brigitte as the guest, Nick for his production, and Curtis with his search engine optimization, and just kind of teaching us that roadmap as well.
Yeah, and I think Jason really keeps track of the analytics. I don't look at them quite as much, but I think Jason could probably tell me, like, how many you said we gained like a pretty high amount of subscribers over the past few weeks, because like during that time frame.
For us, it's miraculous, but in a week's time, we gained about 950 subscribers. Sometimes that would take us, 2-3 months. Obviously, we started off slow. We're currently up around the 6,500, 7,000 subscribers. We'd really like to have a boost and get up around that 10,000 just as a milestone. But another milestone that I got to mention in 2024 was 100,000 views. So we cracked 100,000 views about 6 weeks ago. Now we're above 120,000. So that should really tell your aspiring podcasters out there that, hey, if we've done this 10 or 11 months, we know we're getting there, we know we're established, but to get 20,000 views in about 6 weeks, that kind of tells you that we're there. We're not afraid to throw those numbers out there. Those aren't to brag, but those are to say with humility, we like what we're doing. You guys like what we're doing. If you've got any interesting guests, the best you can do is tap in with us and kind of let us know. And we're not afraid to talk to anybody from all walks of life.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier that thanks needs to go out to M. Curtis McCoy, and then also Brigitte and her fans. But I forgot the most important group of people that we should give thanks to, and that's all of you guys, all of our viewers, because obviously without you guys we wouldn't have a podcast. We'd just be me and Jason sitting here talking to ourselves. So we really appreciate your loyal viewership, and the fact that you. I'm sure that not everyone has time to tune in every week, but the fact that you watch episodes, you give us feedback, and I feel like we can be ourselves, and we don't have to try to be something else.
The one ask that I have, and it's a major ask, but it's more of an appreciation, and it's more of a having our voice heard. If you see us on Instagram, if you see us on Facebook, if you see us on YouTube, not only like and subscribe, but give us a comment. Just say checking in from Philadelphia, PA, checking in from a foreign country. I think what that does is it drives the interaction. So then that way you know where your fellow fans are from. So that's a big ask, but just take that extra 30 seconds. We'd really appreciate it. And in return, if you guys have anybody that you would like us to talk to, we'd be happy to do that. So overall, 2024 started with a vision. It ended more with a resolution, and that's to do more in 2025. To be in the communities, to service the Indianapolis area, and just be part of an ever-growing and thriving podcast community.
Yep. Yeah, and there's a reason why they say like, comment, subscribe. It drives the algorithm and gets more traffic in that direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we left anybody out, it's not because you weren't vastly appreciated for being on the show. We just obviously only have limited amount of time, so we tried to pick some of the people that stood out and that we still have communication with, frequently, that that are big supporters of the show. But yeah, it's not to say that we didn't appreciate every guest that we've had on.
I think a blanket statement to everyone in 2024 was this: we truly appreciate your humility to come on to our show, because you are the guests and the innovators, the politicians, the sports stars, the entertainers that were with us from the beginning. We'll always remember that. So as time goes on, it'll be cool to see a year from now having some of those same guests on that will now have been as much as 2 years from the time they were originally on, to see their growth, to see our growth, and to win together. Because I think when you win together, you support each other's work, I think everybody succeeds. And that's kind of the entrepreneurial vision that I think we have as a podcast moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that I like most about doing this is, and something that gets me a little bit emotional is, during a year's a long time. It's not, but it is. It's a long time. So going on a year, there's a lot, at least in my personal life, a lot of things that have transpired over that year. So, during the year of this podcast, I've been on this, maybe I haven't mentioned the things. In fact, I probably haven't mentioned most of the things, if any of them, but, different things in the roller coaster of life that's gone on. And, whether you know it or not, I'm sharing those, at least those emotions with you, because even if I don't talk about it, I guarantee that comes out in my, my energy, whenever I'm on the podcast.
I think the thing that's been the most telling for me, well stated by Nick, is just the fact that we have so much in common with the guests we have. We're good people, we're winners, we're entrepreneurial, we're education based. We want to see people succeed. We want to represent the city. It's cliche, but 317 is a great number, because that's the area code of Indianapolis. But more importantly, we want to see those people know that we want to see you grow. We want to see you succeed. And as you succeed, we succeed. If we're a 0% chance of your growth, that's growth for us. And I really want to point that out and get people to see, if you're not from Indianapolis, it's a great place to come and visit. And we just, we're always open for any stories, and it's a unique story. Just because we haven't had a guest of another area, let's encourage someone to come on that has a guest or an idea that we haven't discussed up to this point. So then that way we can just continue to use that Mosaic Minds, thread that we've used, which is basically talking to anybody at any time, as long as it's positive and uplifting conversation.
Yeah. One thing I've learned from watching some of these old episodes is, damn, I've gained a lot of weight. I was looking at myself like, man, that guy looks good. Man, I need to get back there.
Everybody's got New Year's resolutions, but our resolution is just, let's all win. Let's all be productive, and let's all be having a rewind of 2025 with better results, more resolution, and let's win. Let's win.
Yeah.
Let's see at the top of the mountains.
Put that out into the universe and let it manifest that 2025 is going to be our best year yet. And well, I think we should put this out there too, just for accountability. But one of the things that we want to do this year is we want to get some merch together. We want to get some some shirts made up, and some hats and some coffee mugs, some stuff like that. So put that out there for accountability, so that way you guys can kind of like bug us about it, like, hey, where's this merch you were talking about? So hopefully that'll be available sometime, hopefully early in the year, but we'll see. Right now we're still flying, doing this for free. So we're hoping that eventually we can get to where it at least pays for itself.
Absolutely. Well said.